Igor turned on the news on the television. Of course, there was nothing interesting there, and it couldn't be. However, sometimes he just wanted to laugh at old shows like Anschlag, Smeka Panorama, or KVN that had long become tiresome. Well, he definitely didn't want to watch Comedy Club, that's for sure. Still, the news was somewhat more interesting, and occasionally, something genuinely useful popped up. Although right now, they were happily reporting that inflation this year would be not 14% like in the previous year, but just 12%. Igor snorted. They showed the Kremlin, and then the picture on the screen started to waver, an alteration passed through it in waves, and then the image disappeared entirely. Everything was covered in a white snow. For a moment, Igor felt like his vision was also wavering and distorting. He shook his head, and the strange unpleasant sensation disappeared. Suddenly, the plastic casing of the television cracked, and a tentacle emerged from it. Damn! Glitches, maybe? Igor exclaimed in fear. Just my luck, watching the good news. Meanwhile, the tentacle was growing larger and larger. They were snaking out from both sides of the television. They began to appear from above and below. Something started approaching from the snow on the screen, slowly but inevitably. Igor didn't want to be in the room when it fully emerged from the hissing interference. He rushed to the door, but the tentacles deftly grabbed him. They pulled him toward the television. And there, right in the center, was something awful, full of twisted teeth. It began to stretch until it occupied the entire screen. A horrifying mouth, which could only belong to a nightmarish monster, licked its long, forked, snake-like tongue. The tentacles pulled closer, jaws widened. The terrifying maw closed, biting off Igor's head. He woke up in a cold sweat. The television was working, playing some silly pop music video. Zombie box. Igor exclaimed and turned off the TV. He walked into the kitchen and drank a glass of juice. The nightmare subsided, and his sweat began to dry. His eyes caught a newspaper. Since he didn't want to watch television, Igor decided to read. He sat on a chair and leaned back. It was another article about some achievements in the field of the economy. Nonsense and nonsense. Achievements only on paper, while in reality, they've been importing the same meat from abroad for a long time. Igor flipped through the newspaper, hoping to find something to read peacefully. A birthday of some long-forgotten Soviet movie star. A meeting of businessmen at an exhibition. A major accident. The last article wasn't pleasant, but it still had something interesting. However, he didn't get a chance to delve into reading. Everything started to blur before his eyes, letters and words became distorted. He tossed the newspaper on the table and shook his head from side to side, hoping to regain his sense of reality. But things only got worse. When he looked back at the article, the letters merged into a black stream, which, like water, began to flow off the page. Then onto the table. Soon, a considerable puddle had formed there. The vile liquid bubbled, starting to take on something numerous and hairy. Igor shivered with disgust as the black puddle transformed into a spider the size of a cat. The arachnid jumped onto the table, its 8 legs spreading out as it quickly scuttled towards him. With a scream, he recoiled, but his back hit the chair's backrest. The spider leaped, extending all 8 limbs, and clamped onto his face. Igor jumped up on the chair. Another nightmare, but he couldn't remember when he had fallen asleep. He seemed to have been reading about a car accident. His eyes darted to the newspaper, but the letters on the page were in their proper places. What's happening to me? Igor muttered, his trembling hand running across his face. Standing up from the chair, he approached the window, trying to appear confident. He lived on the 20th floor, so the kitchen offered a splendid view of the evening city. But then a ripple ran across the glass, a wavy distortion. Igor recoiled but eventually gathered the courage to look out the window. The buildings, skyscrapers, apartment complexes, and low-rise structures were covered in grotesque, reddish growths, like tumors. It was as if the entire city had turned into a gigantic malignancy. Igor's gaze shifted to a bridge. The stream of cars on it merged into one large, multi-eyed serpent. It pulsated and shimmered with various colors. Igor thought he was blinking, and even the lights seemed to pulsate in response to this rhythm. With the help of an app, he managed to avert his gaze from the bridge, focusing on the people walking on the sidewalk below. But there were few people among the swirling silhouettes down there. Anthropomorphic insects, octopuses, arthropods, reptiles, and who knows what else. Some of them merged together, forming truly horrifying mutants. Others appeared to have settled on one form. A ripple of distortion ran across the glass again, everything blurred before his eyes, and it began to darken. Igor felt like he was losing consciousness. From the hallway, the sound of keys in the door lock grated. Someone had come. His father? Mother? Sister? Igor rushed into the corridor and nearly choked with terror. He was right, his father, mother, and sister had indeed come. All together, all at once, all as one. A monstrous body with 3 heads, 6 legs, and 6 arms. His mother and sister's faces on the sides, his father in the middle. "Hello, Igor," his mother smiled, something dark oozing from her mouth. "Hi, Igor," his sister's lips parted to reveal sharp teeth. "Why are you frozen there, like a statue, Igor?" His father's black eyes, floating in red murky liquid, burned with an abnormal fire. "Come here and hug us." Igor stood there, immobilized by disgust and horror. "Well, if you don't want to come to us, then we'll come to you," the 3 heads exclaimed simultaneously. The monstrous entity moved towards Igor, extending its 6 arms hands. The creature was almost upon him when he snapped back to reality. He turned and rushed into the kitchen, with the monster following closely behind. "You shouldn't behave this way. We are a family, we are one." Gathering his wits, Igor dashed for the window. He looked down and saw that the sidewalk had heaved, then collapsed. Teeth had sprouted along the edges of the pit. He was falling right into a gigantic maw. The teeth closed once, twice, and a 3rd time, right in front of his face. Igor was swallowed whole, and the moist, slurping darkness engulfed him.